In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited, mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night, join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited, mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night, join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall, words of blades that never fall, debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited, mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night, join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight. our minds ignite. Welcome to the fierce debates. We explore what fate creates. Side by side we see the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debated warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Next Gen Training. I'm Mr. Bennett, looking for my partner as always, Coach Ferg. He should be up any minute. Judge dropped the link to him, so hopefully he'll be up here in a little bit. Good to be with you guys here on this Thursday and this hot day in June. I don't know where you guys are. It was 90 degrees today in New Jersey, so certainly summer is definitely very much here, and it's still humid because I just got back out from outside. But certainly good to be with you guys. And certainly, as I wait for my partner to show up, I guess I'll certainly lead off the show as always. Just make sure when you come in tonight, make sure you hit the like button as you come in. It certainly supports the algorithm, and so certainly we're looking forward to certainly a good show tonight, good topic that hopefully will inform certainly those who can certainly benefit from the information that we're presenting. So just definitely just looking to get my presentations ready. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask, certainly for those who are coming in tonight, I'm going to ask, how are your pies? So again, we like to start out every show with looking at or talking about how are your pies. That's an acronym, PIES. P is how you doing physically. I, how you doing intellectually. In other words, what are you doing? What have you been thinking about? And what things have you been doing to increase your mental capacity? E is emotional. How's your emotional state? And then S is spiritual. In any ways that you want to look at that, if you have like a religious connection or certainly connection to other people, how you doing in that space spiritually. So these are things that we're going to be looking at. I'm not going to share this right now. You can take this down for right now. We'll put it up. We'll put it up full mast once we get into it. And again, certainly look for Coach to show up so we can kind of go through these. And but again, so just for myself, this is my check-in. Certainly feel free in the chat as you come in tonight to certainly share your pies and what's been going on with you. So physically, I feel a lot better. So as I said last week, I had a lat pull doing some chins. And, so it was to the point where last week I couldn't put weight on it. Last week I was able to start putting in, putting a little light resistance, kind of building back, resting it, stretching, and certainly get myself back up to full mass. I may lay off the chins for a while, but certainly, weight bearing resistance gradually increasing. Certainly as as I start to feel better, stretching and just make sure I'm good there. But otherwise, I feel pretty good. Had a nice, good leg workout that I'm kind of still feeling from yesterday. So again, health overall is pretty good. Intellectually, again, I'm always feeding, always learning new information. I think I live on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know why I have a TV subscription or YouTube TV, because I seldom use it. But I'm always on YouTube. I'm always learning new things. New challenges that come up. And even tonight, sang in a choir tonight, actually, and that's challenging because I'm not a good singer. But I'm just taking it on as a challenge to to feed myself with new information about music and notes and things of that nature. Trying to look at this as I look at it as a task, an intellectual task. So I stopped questioning myself in terms of what I can and can't do. So I want to challenge myself in all areas. Emotionally, I'm very good. It's in a world that's somewhat chaotic. I'm glad that I've developed over the years some emotional stability. I didn't always have that, but I think I've gotten better over the years. And so again, keeping it to being a thermostat and not a thermometer is at what's most important to me. So I'm always trying to be better there. And then spiritually, I'm just always just seeking. It's interesting because again, I watch a lot of debates, a lot of high talk about the faith and whatnot. And it's like the more complicated it gets, the more easier my faith gets. And I just focus on, in my case, I'm a Christian. So I focus on Jesus Christ and his death on the cross, and just, extending love of my neighbor as I love myself. And, all the doctrinal stuff and the institutional stuff, I like to listen to it, but it's like the more complex things get, or more complex the conversations get, how I live my life gets a lot more simple. And, again, loving my neighbor as I love myself, respecting everyone is certainly something that I strive to do, and I become more convicted of every day. So good that we were able to certainly, go through that again. Which certainly, again, we encourage those who are in the chat. Again, share your pies. How you doing, just overall, and we hope that this is something that you can kind of, every day do that assessment of yourself. And if something's not right, then think about ways you can make it right. Think about ways you can improve your situation, so that you can then you can be better to do the things that are required. So with that, again, while I'm waiting for my partner to come up. So again, you can share the slides, David, if you're in the back, and you can share it full mast. I can be I can be small in the background. You can make it much bigger. Make me small and make it make it channeling my inner Isaac Hayes. I don't know if is it the bald head. Uh, that's the reason. Who is the man? So I guess I'm channeling that. But wanted to talk about manners and etiquette today. Now, again, this is something that certainly for young people. Certainly, I just have a daughter who graduated college, and I know she's about to go into the professional workspace, and so certainly, different things that she needs to know. And I know companies in general, like I don't know if you've ever worked somewhere, they have all types of courses, sometimes mandatory videos, oftentimes that you need to watch regarding how you conduct yourself and carry yourself in the office place, to be as respectful. I mean, obviously, especially if you're where I'm at, it's a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi sexual identity. There's just a lot of diversity in a lot of these places, and you want to certainly know how to carry and conduct yourself in certain ways that you do not offend others, and basically you're about the business of getting the job done, whatever that may be, and also putting yourself in position where you can be in places that'll help to further advance your prospects, because like it, whether you like it or not, you're going to be judged one way or another. And so, you need to be able to manage yourself. Also, not just in terms of what you say. Sometimes your body language speaks more than than the words that you use. How you appear, what you dress like in these places. Now, I'm not saying you got to go out and buy a three-piece suit if you're a man, or business suit if you're a woman, but certainly you want to be able to make an impression. And certainly once you get through the interview process, and these days it could be multiple interviews before you get a job, a lot of times you want to be in position, again, to affect in very positive ways. And so, certainly being able to affect certainly in a positive way is really going to make a difference between how you're judged, how you're looked at, and how because fairly unfairly, people are going to be judging our actions and attitudes. So again, this is certainly something that certainly young people can certainly benefit from, and even older folks. And certainly we encourage everybody certainly to take advantage of this information. But again, as I said earlier, just make sure you hit the like button as you come in. Any certainly contributions you want to give, certainly to the Smart HQ Network, or certainly to us, you'll see that in the cash app. There's the coach in the building that certainly we'll be able to take advantage of that. But before we get started, as always, I got to check in certainly with the coach. So I led off this time. I led with my pies. How are your pies been? And what have you been baking?
What's up,
as of
brother?
late?
Can you hear me?
A little shallow. If you
Shallow.
bring it
Let
up
me
just a
see. Let me
tad,
get it.
but
See if I can get it up some kind of way. I got it turned up pretty high. I can hear, almost hear something in my background.
you're good.
Oh, okay.
You're good now.
What's
You're
up,
good
man? Yeah, man. Salute, man. Sorry being late, man. Yeah, my pie's been simple, man. Well, it ain't simple. My pee got something going on with my eye. Got an eyelash. My eyelashes sort of grow like this, sort of, and they grow back.
Oh,
Sometimes they curl back into my eye, and it bothers me.
what do you need? What do you need? A
No, man,
perm?
they
You need a
always grew
perm or
like
something?
that, man. They ain't never had no rhythm to it, swoop. They always been.
You need some
Yeah,
conditioner, some straight,
basically, I
straightening
need to
foam.
put a perm in it or something. So, so now I have to go and they pluck them out and give me a little eye exam test. But that's what I'm dealing with now. Intellectually, I'm just growing in my mind. Little, I sort of excited trying to make a major purchase and just doing the shopping around and looking around, trying to make sure we get the right thing. But yeah, so
Right.
spiritually, emotionally, I'm a little, I guess, antsy, a little excited because, like I said, just still trying to work with that. And my wife told me this afternoon that her leg was bothering her, so just trying to make sure she's okay. Spiritually, again, man, I'm connected to my family, and currently I'm connected to this space right here, man. I like, when we get here, man,
Gotcha.
it's a good conversation.
Absolutely. So yeah, so we're going to get into this, but before we get in there, talking about how you should conduct yourself, I think that people start to understand what your boundaries are when you go into a space. So I shared this on the Thursday live. I shared it with the group in the chat then, but I want to talk about some of this here, because again, these are things that you need to be mindful of if you're going in for a job interview, or what have you. There's certain things. Again, this might be very different. I know me and Coach, again, we're Gen Xers, so we go back a while, and so certainly some things that may have been accepted back in our time in the 80s and the 90s may not be certainly as accepted today. But I just wanted to share, if I could, if you can put the next slide on, the one that is just below it. It's my screen, David. So you can take the manners down for a minute. I just wanted to kind of go over some of these, some of this here, so we can. So right, so if you can just load that one. So this is again, this is coming from a legal firm. So again, Office of Career Strategies. And so basically, these are things that they said you cannot ask in an interview. And if you can't ask it in an interview, then you need to be very mindful of what you say, because this is going to get into some of our manner points. These are things that you're going to have to also be mindful of when you're communicating with colleagues and whatnot. Just be very careful about some of the conversations that you may have. So, for example, an illegal question, they cannot ask you, are you a U.S. citizen, or you sound like you have an accent, or where you're from, where your parents are born, or what is your native language. Again, some of these might be things that you may be that conversation just as you get to know people and where they're from and whatnot. And some of those things the person may volunteer some of this information naturally, but just be mindful if you're in that communicating with someone, if you're leading with those kind of questions. I know in certain trainings that I've been in, they call those microaggressions. And so you need to be mindful of that. So, okay, you got an accent. Where you from? You may not want to lead with that when meeting someone for the first time. But again, certainly conversations are organic, and certainly you need to be mindful of that. Second thing is, again, marital or family status. So again, asking someone if they're married or if they have children. If so, what do you do for childcare? Are you planning children soon, or have you ever been divorced? Where is your spouse employed? Again, these are things that um, you need to be mindful of, especially making first impressions or communicating with people. But again, in an interview, they cannot ask that. They also, and this is good for Coach and I, they cannot ask our age. Can't ask how old we are, because again, there is, whether you like it or not, there is some ageism that goes on out there. So some people think, well, if you're older, then you're less malleable, that you're less coachable or teachable. And you have to make sure that you can demonstrate that, age should not be a factor, as long as I have the aptitudes to do the job, regardless of my age, whether I'm 55 or 25. It should not matter. So certainly, you can certainly talk about your work experience, which is legal, especially those skills that are pertaining to the job. But just make sure that you do not, have them asking you questions about your age that can then use as a bias against you. Certainly in the hiring process. Disabilities. Do you have any disabilities or medical conditions? How's your health? Are you taking prescription drugs, or have you been diagnosed with any mental illness? Have you ever been an alcoholic, or have you ever been in rehab? Again, in an interview setting, they cannot ask you these questions. But the bottom line is, certainly they may ask certain candidates, depending on the job, for a physical exam. If you're going to be dealing with hazardous materials, if you're going to, certain jobs require a certain amount of physicality or vision or what have you, then certainly they can do that. But again, asking you personal questions about what prescriptions that you're on and whatnot, that is private, confidential medical information, and they're not entitled to that. Also, again, what religion that you practice. Now, again, I know certainly with Muslims, I know they're in the middle of Muslim holidays at this point. And like I said, certainly as you go in your office, you may either recognize people being Muslim by either how they look, or sometimes just by the practices, or they may talk about their fasting, doing for Ramadan or whatever the particular time of the year is. Again, that may come up in natural conversation, but inquiring about what their religion is, or what have you, it could, you shouldn't be asking about those. But you can ask, like, if your work requires work on weekends. Now, again, that is something that they can't ask. So that could be an issue. Let's say if you're an avid churchgoer, or you have certain religious activities that you do on Sunday, you prefer not to work on Sundays, then certainly they have a right to ask those things, especially if the job requires Sunday work. Then you may have to reevaluate the job. But as far as them asking about, what faith, and obviously I certainly wouldn't advise proselytizing. Back in the day, I knew some folks at work, they certainly want to convert you to Jesus, or whatever their religion was at work. And so certainly those things you got to be very, those things you have to be mindful of. And so I just wanted to share that first. We can certainly take this guy down, and then we can load the manners slides back up, and we can kind of get into that. But coach, just what are your thoughts on that? Just some of those questions, because I wanted to kind of lead with that because it's not just about what you need to be doing, but also know your rights and where people can press you or push you on certain things. I think it's just as important that you know what your limits are and that those limits get respected just as much as you're trying to extend the respect to other people. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a lost art today. Everything that you displayed and spoke about, I am 100% with, what I'm saying, not being able to ask these type of questions. Also, just in that whole interview process, I believe to me, when I apply for a job, I read what the job requirements are. I just don't look at it like, oh well, I'm gonna get a job and work. No, I read what the job requirements are and see if that's something that I would be up to doing, I want to do, or able to do. Like you mentioned, we're working on weekends. If there's things that I like to do on the weekend, I don't look for jobs on the weekend.
Correct.
And outside of coaching, you may have a game on a Saturday or something, which is okay. But as far as like if I got to get up and put on a uniform and get out into the streets and and climb up and down those jobs, once I got to a certain age, I didn't qualify for anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But going into every job that I applied for, I went to do the best job I could do.
Right.
I didn't get caught up in the interview process, like I said, just where you started from, yes, I think everybody should learn these because they're universal across the country, regardless of what job you apply to. So you should know these things and understand the cues. I think the cues, you have to know the questions that to be looking out for so you can answer appropriately, and sometimes, interviews, it could be somebody just trying to insinuate, or maybe I'm from North Carolina, so but to ask where are you from, seems to lead to bias, and of course, it's breaking the law. So know your laws.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we can't get away from the fact that there is a certain level of subjectivity where you be
Yes.
perfectly qualified for a particular job. But again, you're also part of a culture and part of a team, working relationships and whatnot. And so, those are things that, you can try to make that as unbiased as possible. But that's not, but people aren't always successful at that in hiring and whatnot. That's why, people talk about, it's funny because I know with my wife, one of the things I'm really proud of her is because of the position that she occupies. She's in not, I wouldn't say a hiring capacity, but certainly a qualifying capacity. And just the fact that she's able to bring her life experiences to the position, candidates get looked at that maybe back in the day may not have gotten a look.
Yeah.
Because of who she is. And a lot of times people talk about diversity in hirings and things of that nature. And a lot of times these places aren't diversified because you don't have people of diversified backgrounds in, again, either hiring or qualifying positions. To at least say, you don't just give a job to someone. No one here we're not talking about quotas or whatnot. It's all about opportunity and extending opportunity to as many people to find the best candidates in order to get the work. And so, having people in critical positions who can do that is important. And especially if there is bias, then certainly kind of counterbalancing the bias certainly is useful. But so let's say, so once you're in there, okay, so you got the job, you're in, and so what are some of the principles that can really help you out in terms of making a good impression, and that you can really focus on the work that you're doing rather than anything that might be misunderstood by someone else in the office. So again, one of the first ones we can look at. I mean, this shouldn't be. You would think you shouldn't have to say this about being respectful and courteous to everyone. But this is something that I've seen, Coach, and just I've been saying this in these spaces for quite a while now. That respect is given, it's not earned.
Sure.
And for some reason, there's a lot of people who just think, well, look, you have to earn my respect before I respect you. And I don't know where that crept into. I don't know, how we got there, but we were raised in certain ways to be, especially to certain people, regardless if you knew them or not, to older people, to people in authority, to say yes sir and no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. It's kind of now some younger people today some young ladies in particular, they don't like ma'am. I realize that. So I'll say to a young lady, I'll say yes ma'am, and she'll look at that. That's just how I was raised. It's just how you address people with those courtesies and whatnot. But at least give people the respect, and then they can then dictate the terms. So if I said, Mr. Ferg, or however you address yourself, you can say, oh, call me coach, call me whatever. Then I have the permission to do that. But I'm not, if I know you for the first time, even if I know your name, I'm not going to address you for the first time until you say otherwise. So I always start with a high level of salutation, and then you can then choose to bring it down to, and then we can kind of go from there. But again, like I said, this is something you would think that you wouldn't have to share, but there's a lot of people who walk around with a sense of entitlement, that think that they don't have to respect anybody that they don't want to. And I think it's a bad precedent, and I think it's something that for those who walk with that attitude, you're not going to get very far, because again, unless you control the means of income and production and whatnot. Now, look, if you're independent, you can be as rude and crude, and you can form a space. And sometimes in these social media spaces and on YouTube, people make a living off of being very crude and disrespectful to people, and sometimes there's an audience for that. But if you're talking about working with the general population, where there's other people, then you may need to talk about that. So again, don't think we need to talk about this, Coach, but your thought, your 2 cents on this one, and are you seeing what I'm seeing? It's just, and this is doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter. It's just like there's just a lack of respect, period. Yeah, and I think it's filtering down to younger and younger people.
This is an interesting topic, right? Because you spoke on it, and just in the generation in general, I've seen a lot of where you were, however you received it, you were coached, you were forced, you were told, you were summoned to be respectful to people. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, that was one of the biggest things my father he went by with all of his children in the house at my mom. He used to have conversations with me all the time. Hey, especially when I was a kid, 8, 9. You see Miss So and So, da da da. You better say hi. Every old woman I saw, I don't know if she looked old, walked old. Hello, ma'am. How you doing, ma'am? Hey, young man. How you? Even if they spoke to me, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Every even today, as you spoke, a woman that I believe is my peer and above me, they gonna get ma'am. First time
Mhm.
encounter, Walmart, going through the aisle, excuse me, ma'am, da da da. I keep it moving. I'm trying to make sure you have a safe journey and I do too. People my age and peers, I'm gonna always give them mutual respect. I may not necessarily say, women, I'm gonna, for the most part, say, ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. You know what I'm saying? Just because, and I half the time I don't even look for a response. I just like to be clear. And if I come into a job, every job I've gone to, I speak to everybody. I don't identify certain people to speak. I walk into a
Yeah.
room filled with people. Hello,
Mm.
everyone.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm not
Yeah.
calling the girl with the short, tight skirt on. Hey, you look sexy and fine today. I've never done that. I never
Yeah.
move like that. I don't see people I work with on a personal level
Yeah.
unless we get to know each other outside the job. And even that, it's still going to be limited But as far as me coming on to a position and uh, just starting a new space anew, I'm always gonna speak. I'm gonna speak to the guard at the front desk. Hey, what's
Yeah,
up, Mr.
same.
Security Guard?
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Mr. Coffee Man. I'm gonna speak to them because as they get to know me and I get to know them just by character, then there's going to be always be a level of mutual respect, because I think outside the workspace when I meet people, as far as if I was to see them outside here and there's a situation where they're in need of help,
yeah,
I'm going to make sure I keep that lines of I guess understanding and respect always. And I teaching young people this. That's one of the biggest things I harp on, even in going to a job and applying and sitting at an interview. It's
yeah,
okay to say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and
right,
let them defer you to the name to call them
yeah.
instead of you just going in,
Hey,
hey,
Pat.
Bennett,
Hey,
hey,
how you
Bennett.
doing?
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
so and yeah, and you know YouTube, you know it's a little there. Everything is opposite of what you talked about on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting when you talked about just the persons involved. Like I learned very early on to appreciate that one, that there's no work that is beneath you.
For
That
sure.
doesn't mean that it's with your skill, that 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 you have to do that, but no work is, and all roles are important. I remember my first job I really had, like official job. All I did, clean up, and I worked at McDonald's, and I had to mop outside. I had to do all these different jobs and whatnot, and I initially I was thinking it was, it's like, man, I'm better than this, but
Right.
it's not about you staying in that. It's having an
Right.
appreciation for what other
Yes.
people do.
Yes.
And so me, I've always spoken to, like you said, the guard when I walk into the building. I dab my man up. My man's name is James. I said, "What's up, James?" I mean, every day he's there, opens the door for me. I come in, I dab him up. How you doing? That kind of thing. Whether it be the person cleaning the bathrooms,
Yes.
and whatnot. Some of them don't speak English, but I speak a little Spanish or whatever. So
Right.
so everything's good. Pound them up or whatever. Because again, every job is important, and nobody should feel belittled or that you're above or beneath them because you're just in a higher position. Now, again, I know a lot of people for whatever reason, they just think, okay, well, because he's a janitor, he's no good.
Mm-hmm.
You respect the VP or the CEO, but then the janitor doesn't have, think that he's worth respecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just never had that moniker. So my thing is, I talk to everybody, every race. I mean, look, I love the brothers. And I'll dab, pound, brother. We have our bro code and how we do stuff, whatever. But I
For
don't
sure.
care, white, black, yellow, whatever it is. If I haven't seen you for a minute, I just go in and introduce myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that that's something that needs to be practiced, where
Yeah.
you go and introduce yourself and learn the practice of treating everybody with respect, regardless of their job title or position. If you see the janitor going out with a bucket of, you can hold the door for them. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot, but it certainly. But all those people, because again, if the bathrooms aren't clean after a while, then you're gonna be complaining to somebody.
Yes.
So my thing is, yeah, courteous and respectful, regardless of the position. You should always follow that. But the
Brother
next
Bennett,
one here, yeah,
hold on.
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to go back really quick on that point, right? Be respectful to the job that you also have to do. Be respectful to that. You fill out an application, you show up for the job, you go through the interview, you do all of these things to get the position. Be respectful to the position. Get the job done first before you want to start being disrespectful. Because when you're disrespectful, you get fired. Really
Yeah,
quick, my first job ever, because I learned how to cut hair early, so I was really good with a pair of clippers, man. Line
mm,
up, swoop, whatever you did. I learned by myself. I taught people how to do it. I made a great living. But my first official job was cleaning bathrooms at the fair. Two
yep,
bathrooms. I
yep,
cleaned them so well that within that 10 days, the head lady said, listen, when you come back from school next summer, you come over here and work with me full time. She gave me a full-time job after my freshman year in college, 7:30 to 3:30 every day. I got paid every Friday just
Right.
based off of cleaning those 2 bathrooms. So
There you go.
yeah, and no job was beneath me when I was wanting to work. So
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, and do a job well if they're paying you for it. Again, you may not. Again, it doesn't have to be. It's not to say this is your job forever.
You're correct.
But people always say, you know, I mean, even scriptures talk about again, if you're faithful with the little things, I will bless you with much. How you treat initial opportunities is going to, you know, pay a great dividend for you as you get to the larger ones. But let's go
Yes.
to the next one. Again, listen to coworkers' ideas and opinions without criticism. So again, but it follows that same line of respect. Everybody has a different point of view. Everyone has a different perspective, and you can learn from everybody, especially if you're in leadership. If you're truly in leadership, you're a dumb leader if you're the only one whose opinion is warranted, or you're the only voice in the room. I've always heard. I'm sure you've heard this too. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to get out of that room, because there's perspectives that you can glean from people, and having an open dialogue. That's how creativity goes off. Nobody's idea should say, "Oh, that's a stupid idea." Be mindful of that, because again, it's a sign of hubris. It's a sign of, again, disrespect, that you think you're better than someone else. So again, that doesn't mean if I'm in a position to make decisions, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to buy your idea. But if I create an environment where ideas can be readily shared, then everybody feels that they have a role, everyone feels that they're involved, and that their voice matters. Those are the people who want to stay. That's how you create a culture where people think that they're all bought into the culture, when everybody's ideas are entertained. Like I said, you don't have to accept it. But again, respect where these people came from, their work experience. If they came from a different job but they worked in a similar situation, yeah, you need to listen and ask sometimes. And hey, especially at evaluation time, sometimes in the evaluation process, that is the time oftentimes that people are allowed to voice their opinions about the overall work environment. How can it be better? Sometimes you ask as a man, how can I be better in this environment? And again, listen to what is said. But a lot of times people are afraid to voice their opinion because they're afraid that they're going to be judged, or that it can impact their performance or their rate, their gradings. And so a lot of people just let a lot of stuff goes on, and then organizations always asking about, well, why aren't we growing, or why can't we retain certain people? But you got to be open to it. There have been times where I've had to check some managers, like, look, that was kind of filthy how you did that, in a respectful way. But they'd be like, oh, you know what? I got it. All right. Thanks for calling that out. I'll check that. I'll make sure I do better next time. And so again, you want that kind of environment where, again, nobody is above. Yes, there's leadership, there's decision makers, and there's roles that people occupy. But again, taking in those ideas, I think it can certainly be useful to yourself. So what's your thoughts on that, Coach?
I mean, everything you're saying is spot on, man. Yeah, in the field that I work in, it's like every so often, a couple times a month, a quarter, we'd have these team meetings. A lot of times I worked in positions where there was a team. We all met at a central location. We shared ideas and philosophies and strategies. And then we would go to our prospective location to implement some of the changes or just continue on doing. And when we used to come together, they would always compare numbers of total participants, each individual had, and they would sort of rank them and put them on. You know how they put them on the
Mhm.
chart, the pie
Yeah.
chart, and
Yeah.
let you know that you ain't doing your job efficiently or proficiently enough. So I used to like that because just even in the conversations we have, I've had hundreds. Well, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of conversations with people, young-minded people, people looking to start anew, get into the workforce, people being re-entered into the workforce, people coming out into society, being after being locked down for some time, getting them acclimated to be able to be in positions to apply for a position, get to the job, work the position, learn the skills of the position. So I had a lot of opportunity with that. And just even in these, slides and each concept is, I've been fortunate enough to sort of understand that process. Brother Bennett, I go back, I see old people that lived in my neighborhood. I
Mhm.
remember, and the first thing they bring up is how I showed them or how I taught them how to do something. These are grown men. That
Right.
we run into each other. I'm like, man, I ain't seen this dude, man, in 25, 30 years. Man, you used to have us in the park, man. You throwing football, making us shoot jump shots, showing us how to hit the baseball. Right? I used to be like, yeah, I remember pretty much everything, and just having those experiences and just taking them to the workforce, being able to share ideals, and I think the difference from a generation or so is that we could compartmentalize our lives. A lot of times we didn't bring our personal life into the job and come, it happened, but for the most part, people were coming in to do a job and maintain a high effort in the job. Because a lot of people my age and your age now, they've been working since they were 17, 16, 15. A lot of
Yeah.
them are starting to retire just based off, they put in the time. And so it's a unique time because younger people, younger adults, them 40s and unders, man, they look at a job like that's beneath me.
Yeah.
They don't get the opportunity to share their ideals. And, a lot of times you see it in the company's production, you see it in in their work ethic. There are a lot of people, they don't feel that they can get heard at the job and they'll just quit a job. And then, just so yeah, it's interesting, man.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Next one. Keep from interrupting others. Avoid talking over someone and apologize if you do. We've been in these YouTube spaces for a while now, and it's a regular practice. So,
Yes.
so you know,
Yes, sir.
it's definitely something that sort of again can stifle. But I think a lot of that comes from that. I think a lot of this is all coming stemming from the same place. So again, if you go back, like I said, that first slide, it sounds like you shouldn't have to talk about that about respecting others, but I think a lot of this is stemming from the same place that you don't have either the confidence in your position to allow someone to finish, or you don't respect someone enough to let them make their point and then come in and then if you want to take apart what they said. But it's like the constant cutoff is something that now I know some people do it um somewhat innocently in that, sometimes you get a thought that comes into your mind and you want to get it out before you forget the point. And I know both of us being older, and that's happened to me more and more these days,
That's how it would
where
be
some
all the
some some would be right there, and then I come back, it's like, oh snap, I it just went. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I'm trying to get it back. So sometimes you want to get something out because you don't want to have to try to recall it. But again, repeated activity is something that again can frustrate people. And again, you're not going to be able to have productive conversations. So again, when you're listening to the opinions of others, Do you let them at least get the point out? Or are you so dismissive in that I know what you're going to say, so we might as well not go here? It's a lack of patience that you have with other people. And then therefore, again, you create an environment that's not open. It's not open communication where you're constantly shutting people down. Now, again, and then sometimes those conversations can escalate. If someone gets to the point where please stop cutting me off, then there's some damage that has been done. And so, certainly giving people the opportunity to, again, I get it. And especially when we talk sports, I know we do this sometimes on sports, so sometimes we get into the combos and whatnot. And somebody says, oh, I can't let that go, in fun and jest, sure. But again, when you're trying to talk about, efficiency, if you're talking about a productive workplace or whatnot, a healthy environment for people to be productive in, then yeah, you gotta learn to do that. Over talking people, especially if you're over talking a superior, that'll definitely get you in some trouble. So again, making sure that you have to, again, room to finish their points, and then you make yours. Now, again, it goes both ways, because you may think, okay, yeah, I'm doing that, but then they always cut me off. And so again, I'm not saying that's a healthy situation, but here is talk about how can you be proactive in this process. And again, if you do get called out for cutting someone off, stop doing it. They say the best apology says apologize if you do. Well, the best apology is reformed behavior. And so again, learn to stop doing it. But again, I get it. It's hard for people, especially when you have an ideology, especially if you've been used to it for so long and people let you get away with it. And now I'm just to the point now, it's like, if you're interrupting, then there's no need for this conversation. But again, in a work situation, if someone's not going to play arbiter or whatever, then I may have to talk to somebody to say, look, try and talk to this person or whatnot, and if you are in a supervisory role, you got to say, like, let them finish. Sometimes you got to play referee to allow people to finish their points before there's that interruption. So what in your work standard, a lot a lot of that, where people over talking and whatnot in meetings and things of that nature, and what's typically the result of that when and if it does happen?
Well, like, no. So no, in my workplace though, either I was working by myself or with the team, and sort of those metrics were already expected as far as allowing and sharing ideas for the team to be a part of. We did a lot of breaking off into groups of 3 or 4, so we can just sort of pass different ideas and come up with different concepts. So, and for the most part, it was always pretty cool. I didn't really run into that on a consistent basis. Well, let me say, when you're with friends and stuff, and you're going back and forth, and you the Steelers, and I'm the the Bears, and
And we make
like,
exceptions. Yeah, Steelers, Cowboys, we make exceptions for those. The Giants, Eagles, we make exceptions. But
yeah. So in that type of dialogue, but in a professional manner, no, I definitely haven't really seen it. Even with meetings with state officials, and everybody's trying to make sure that their point is heard. I haven't really seen it a lot. YouTube is the common place for this. This right here. It happens often without any apology, without any disregard to that respect. And like you said, a lot of people have a thought or a point that snaps into their head, and they can't, and once it snap out, they can't snap it back in. So yeah, I see it. But as far as someone apologizing, you might see it. Say somebody's talking, and me and you both have a point, and we start talking, and you know how on YouTube with the mic and delay, sometimes we might stop a second, then we both start up again, then we stop a second, and we might do it 2 or 3 times. And then typically for men, I know I see a lot of times where somebody would just concede. All right, go ahead, man. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. I go after you. Stuff like that. But
Yeah.
as far as the job,
Yeah. And actually, Mariana, obviously, you made a good point. In terms of the times, in terms of the political, and again, what
sure.
we've seen over the last probably couple decades now
Hmm.
in our politics, the idea of being a gentleman or being a gentlewoman, what had again, just to break down, and these are supposed to be the people, these are supposed to be the OGs who are supposed to know better. And like I said, it almost feels like with some of this stuff, you shouldn't have to say and do these things. But unfortunately, again, leadership is not being a good example. And again, I'm not calling out any names or anything, but again, just our political discourse is very dysfunctional, where there's a lot of over talking, where there's a lot of fighting, and just people just want to just muddy the water. It's not even about who has the right point. It's about oftentimes who stirs up the most chaos. And it's difficult to listen to. So again, I'm always, certainly, like I said, I love watching debates, especially intelligent people who can speak intelligently and give people the grace and respect to make their points before, their rebuttals or what have you. I've always loved a formal debate setting. It's just that, again, this climate has been damaging to so many people, and unfortunately, some of that behavior is rewarded. And so, so again, I hope that what we're sharing tonight doesn't fall on deaf ears, and that it's not about have the maturity to say, well, they're doing it, so we need to do it. And I think certainly you always need to conduct yourself in a certain manner, regardless of how other people are operating. And again, if there's an opportunity to disengage, then you disengage. This is not going to be fruitful, so I'm not gonna get down in as Scripture says, I'm not going to cast pearls before swine. I'm not going to get in the mud with you. When you want to have a conversation, then we can talk.
Yes.
If you just want to rant and rage and vent and whatnot, then again, that's not a healthy. And again, I'm to the point now where I'm too old for that. I used to get caught up in some of those, and we talked about that last week. We talked about narcissists.
Yes.
Now, people who are narcissists, they want to get you right there. They want to get you where they're at.
Yes.
Don't fall for the bait. And one of the ways they do that is, again, by over talking to get you into a a situation. And again, at the end of the day, it's not going to be productive. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Next point. Respect each other's workplace and belongings. Knock before entering someone's office. Again, you would think these would be common. I just had this situation with my daughter. I'll share this. So again, they were slated that they're going to move. Then corporate environment, they're going to move the desks, and you actually had one of these office managers. Now again, the employees, like, they have these cubbies where they keep stuff, food and supplies and things of that nature. And now the employees were supposed to move their own cubbies to the new locations. They're going to move your computers and all that and set up the networks and all that. But your personal cubby spaces, you're supposed to move those yourself. You actually had this lady who basically threw out my daughter's stuff and was just like, yeah, threw it out. But she had no right to violate my daughter's space.
Oh,
I don't care what your business, but she's one of these OG ladies who's been there forever.
She old red, nigga.
And so they had to, so my daughter, she didn't flip out. But first she got to me first, which is smart. So she reached out to me first, and she broke down the situation and everything. And I basically told her kind of how to navigate, how to operate, because she was like undone. And again, she still has that young person mentality. It's like, I don't know if this place for me, like quitting. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. Yes, it was wrong. Especially once you find out, you go through your channels, report to your management, and if need be, report to HR.
Yeah, go through the channels.
HR, verify what happened, and she's getting reimbursed for what was thrown out. Now,
Yes.
again, whether or not they fire the lady or not, I don't know, how that's going to go. But it was just she was so nonchalant because she's relatively new to the company, and she was just so nonchalant about doing what she did. And so, like I said, a lot of this stuff is not lost on young people. Older people with a certain sense of entitlement think that they don't have to respect new employees, younger employees, sometimes the hue of the employee or the sex of the employee. But again, it goes back to that first slide. Respect everyone. I don't care what your position is. You have no right to go into someone's personal space. So you got to be mindful. Like, even when you're at someone's desk. Now, again, if you're working like in a cubicle desk setting or whatever, positioning. Sometimes you're sharing a computer screen and showing people stuff or whatever. Again, try to keep some sort of boundaries. Don't be all up in them. Back up a little bit. And again, if you have an office now, again, I manage for me, I'd be like, yeah, open office policy or whatever. Not first or whatever, but people just walk in. And again, sometimes even management does that because they think, well, because I'm the manager, I can just walk in. Again, you would do a lot to earn the respect of those who work for you if you respect theirs, because they could be in the middle of something that you asked them to do. So you got to be mindful of that as well. So again, respecting people's workplace and their belongings. Again, seems like we shouldn't have to be doing it, but I literally last week this happened. So it's not lost on the young. So what's your thoughts on that, Coach?
I mean, first of all, man, shout out to you, man. The fact that you was able to give her that wisdom with, it paid big dividend down the road. You brought her to a place of peace and calm in a sense so she can think through the process and gave her the best advice to be able to resolve her losses. And I think it's important for, again, going back to the workplace and just understanding the policies and some of the ethics of how they move, to be able to follow through and make sure even if you are, I guess, violated in the sense of, your personal workspace, take the proper channels to resolve it. Don't take it to the streets. Don't just say nothing. Bring it to HR, put it on paper, put it on documentation so they can definitely have something. And then if any time you do decide to take it further, at least you have be able to take some form of legal recourse, which we see they didn't waste no time to resolve, because to the higher ups, it's really a small incident that they don't want to draw negative attention to.
Right.
But just in that, man, you go to the job and they got this, I guess, team refrigerator and, place, you put your sandwich in there, your nice little leftovers.
Don't make it too nice.
And somebody done bit off your sandwich, taking the chips or something. I've seen it happen. And it's always been important for me to respect the job at the highest.
Right.
I'm gonna knock before I go. If I'm going to your cubicle, I might hit the little, just so I, let you know that I'm not gonna stand over you and no, here I come. I'm gonna let you know I'm coming. So
exactly.
In your area, and but I'm a person though. I guess when I really got into the workforce after the military, I just utilized what I was taught in reference to always being professional, always putting my ethics above my feelings, so I can make sure I get the best outcome, like we spoke about earlier, for that position. I'm not going to touch your stuff. What I'll do is I will relay to you, like, hey, you left your jacket over there. You go get your jacket. And I'll say before somebody get it for you. So, but here's the question I want to ask you in reference to your daughter. did they have a certain time frame that they had to move things, or it was just they were
I
told and
think
she
it was
was
like over the weekend. So she was out, I think, on the day when the major move was. She
oh,
was
she
like
didn't
out
move
of
it
the
before
office.
then.
But
Oh
no, it
yeah,
wasn't before. It was, but basically the idea was they were responsible for moving their cubby. It was a movable cubby.
yeah,
She had snacks and different
yeah,
food items and stuff like that in there. Like I said, the computers and everything was going to be moved,
right,
and because they got to reconnect it to the networks and all that kind of stuff, and make sure stuff's up on Monday.
right.
So when she
So
came
what?
in,
Yeah,
she realized her desk was moved, but she's like, "Where's her stuff?"
right, right.
And it took her a minute, so she's freaking out over that. What happened to my stuff? And then she found out that the office manager threw out her stuff, and she like openly admitted, like it wasn't even like she didn't even try to um
Right. That's where she went wrong.
offend. And it was yeah. So it was definitely one of those things where it was like she was just like, yeah, I did. No, I'm sorry or whatever, but she just
But,
felt
but
entitled to
Brother
do that.
Bennett, what I'm asking is how far in advance were they told to do that? And she was out the day of the major move because she had moved it like the day before she was going to be out or a couple of days prior, just a little covey or put it in her car, things like that. I understand, you know what I'm saying? The lady was wrong from throwing it out,
Mhm.
but just, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
No, I'm going to be out the day when everything's supposed to be going. Just let me just take my stuff and put it in the car. I ain't got to worry about nobody touching it, moving it. And I can see you being upset, a person being upset. But again, the
Mhm.
management, she was wrong for throwing it out. I can see if you just take it and move it, but she throwing it out, that's a sign of disrespect.
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's another, because I'm talking about private individual spaces. The one thing that I've seen in certainly the last few years, so a lot of these corporate places, they have like public type of place, especially kitchen areas. And you see a lot of people, you're there for a while. They got, microwaves, and they have, vending machines, and they have sinks, because people bring their lunch in usually because it's cheaper. Obviously, I rarely eat out for lunch. I'm always bringing something from home to save money.
So,
So, they get your coffee or your oatmeal or whatever it is, and you leave your dishes like in the sink. Or some people, they think they eat, oatmeal, they'll soak it. But they leave it there, and it's like they're like all day. Like you come in, and there's cups and plates, and bowls and spoons that are in and around the sink area that people are simply not claiming. Or you leave a mess in that kitchen area. Someone told me something a while ago that I just incorporated into my life. You always try to leave an area better, or leave persons better than before you got there. And so a lot of times you go into the bathroom and there's like, a lot of water on the sink or soap or whatever from the salt, whatever. It's always been my practice to, after I wash my hands and, dry myself, I'll use, or maybe take another piece of tissue or whatever, paper, and just wipe the sink down. Or if I'm in that kitchen area, if I'm washing out my stuff, because like I said, I bring everything in. So I'm washing out certain things. I've always been one to just wipe a little bit more the area. There's a coffee machine that's next to the sink, and some people with their coffee or whatever, there's like the coffee rings that are there. If I see it, or if I see a spilt dried coffee, and if it's in my arm length, I just go out and wipe it off, even though I'm not drinking coffee from that machine. It's just something that I just adopted, that I never wanted to leave an area sloppily. And you've seen people where the area is so sloppy, it's like, why did you just leave it like that? I had this one case with this woman. She complained to me. We were kind of friendly or whatever. She complained to me. He's like, yeah, and someone spilled something and they just left it there. And then I just kind of asked her, well, did you do anything? If I were there, I would not have liked that people left it like that. But especially if I'm using the space, I would just do a quick wipe down just to kind of clean it up. But she was so indignant that the person's left it there. She rather would have vented to me about the person leaving it there rather than doing something yourself to clean the area that you were in. So I kind of checked her on that. She was like, "Yeah, you're right. I could have did something." So when we start respecting the workplace or people's, again, public spaces is everybody's space. And so you need to be able to clean up after yourself. Don't throw tissue paper. They got the signs in there. Don't throw the paper towels down the toilet. Only use tissue paper in the toilets, not paper towels. And I go into the bathroom and I'm like, what are we doing? And I hate to have to say this. I hate it. Coach, I think you know where I'm going here. I hate this. Some dudes don't flush after a number 2. This is a corporate area. This isn't high school. This isn't the fast food place. This isn't the gas station. This is a corporate environment. People are being paid 6 figures plus. And you don't flush after a number 2. I'm like, are you serious? That to me, that's a violation also. That's a disrespect. If I come in and I see brown, or even in the urinals, there's gum. There's like a chewing gum in the urinal.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is not lost on young people. These are professional people, highly educated people, and don't, for whatever reason, don't understand basic etiquette. Or maybe they thought that, because a lot of these toilets are like automatic flush. So they thought maybe it was automatic, but sometimes, look, if you drop the SAR bomb in there, it may not necessarily go down with that automatic flush. Just saying. You may just think you can just get up and leave it and it didn't go down. Just because of that, I look. Okay. To make sure my stuff went down the drain. Oh my gosh. Well, I had to go there and talk about it. No, I don't think anybody's talking about it, so maybe this might be the first. But I was like, this is years. This is therapeutic. This is years of venting that I'm finally having to talk about. But it makes no sense in corporate America. Yeah. It makes no sense that I should be seeing that. Middle school, okay. Not corporate. It is unbelievable. So yes, take care of the common areas. If you use something, put it back. If you, yes, okay. So I get it. You need to soak because you especially have that cream of wheat or grits or something. Yeah, grits gets hard. You may not get it right away. Yeah, you want to soften it up with a little soap and water, whatever. Make sure you come back in about 10 minutes tops. But there have been times where I've seen office persons after a while, all the cups and thermals and stuff left up there, they just put it and say, look, just throw it all out. And maybe the person, maybe they got fired before they had a chance to reclaim their stuff. I don't know, but I know that hasn't happened all the time. So that's probably I probably spent a little more time on that than I needed to, Coach. But that was my opportunity to rant. Hopefully you haven't been traumatized the way I've been over the years from seeing that. Maybe in the military there might be a little bit more disciplined when it comes to that. But yeah. That's what mutates and start developing language.
Out of all the conversations I've been a part of with you, and the one that gets you worked up is seeing that big old tugboat in the toilet.
I mean, come on, man.
It's like I can't take it no more. What the hell we doing out
You
here?
left a scud bomb, one of them scuds. You left one of them
Yeah.
scuds in there, man.
Hey man, listen, man. And again, man.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah.
Now I haven't
But,
seen this. Thank God. But again, when I worked at McDonald's, we used to have to
oh,
clean the men and women's bathrooms. And I got to tell you, the women's bathrooms were filthier certainly than the
yeah,
men's.
they're
And
the
because of
worst.
stuff like this, dirty
Yeah.
tampon, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, women, I don't know what they're doing either. So
And
I
you
don't know what
keep
the hygiene, the hygiene of these folks or whatever. I mean, that's a different show. That's a different conversation. We're gonna move on from here. But it seems like I've unlocked some other people who've had some trauma here, so I don't want to entertain this too much. We're gonna
yeah,
go on with the next point here,
take a water break,
and
brother. Hey, let me
next one.
you want me to read
Here
it?
you go.
Get your
Here you go. Let's get to more balance here. Okay, treat everyone fairly and equally, no matter their gender, race, age, size, or religion. Again, fairly common stuff, but again, I'm worried here because this is, and again, I'm not going to get overly political, but I thought that the whole idea of DEI and whatnot was to create a fair and equitable place for everyone. At least in conception, that's what it was supposed to be. And now you seeing people who are acting more tribal, and again, a lot of those protections, a lot of that respect is being lost. So if you're a Christian nationalist and you're working with Muslims or whatever, either you're doing things or saying things, or women in the workplace. Again, I got another daughter. She had an unfortunate job experience where guys were felt free to say what they wanted. Again, she's a black woman, and just of aggressive, sexist stuff that was said. But again, it was a small company. It was kind of, um, paid well, was close. It was like very close to the house. I mean, perfect location. But it was a very old school, traditional place. And it just wasn't a place that was hospitable to, certainly to persons of color. I'll just say that. And to women. And these guys felt, especially with this last election, guys felt almost emboldened to be able to say things that wouldn't ordinarily be said. So again, so these are things that people are actually dealing with in the workplace, where they don't feel respected, or that their religious beliefs aren't being respected, or just all kinds of things. So again, where you're at or where your wife works, I mean, has she seen more disrespect in the work where she works? I mean, have you guys had conversations on the environments, or the degradation, or the decline of some of these work environments where protected classes don't feel as safe as they once did? Now, again, I want protection for everybody. I don't think white men, for example, should feel any less or more intimidated than anybody else. I mean, I think everybody's should be respected, everybody. But there have been places where it's almost like Mad Men, where a lot of these environments are becoming less safe, or people are feeling more intimidated in these spaces. Now, again, sometimes you got to suck it up, our ancestors. So I get that as well. And those guys certainly sacrifice so we can have better. But what do you say on this spectrum here, Dad? Do you think that there's an increase in people feeling that they don't feel respected at work because of some of these factors? And I guess, these days, again, you got to include sexual orientation in that. Regardless of what your personal views on certain things may be, those are certainly part of the conversation as well. So your thoughts on this one, Coach? You muted, Coach.
I'm sorry, man. I was just talking. from my wife's position, since we've been married, she's been pretty much working from home.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
So she's not in environmental. Gotcha.
but she does have, there are conversations with coworkers about, being treated unfairly, because now, since they're starting to sort of end this work from home and things like that, she's only required to go into the office 4 days a month.
Mhm.
And they were talking about increasing that to maybe 8 days a month. And the upper management are going to have to start doing it the first of the month of July. So they may soon follow, which, she's like, hey, I'm cool with it. 4 to 8 days a month. They told me go in every day. She has that mindset. And again, when I sign up for a job, I apply to a job, I understand the times and days I must work. But as far as my experience with this, it's all about being fair. That's why you hear me say a lot, and I guess it's just based on my experience with working with people who are believing that they are less than or broken. I've always had to be fair. I always left my feelings out of it. I don't bring my feelings. I have empathy and understanding, but in my position, they're saying get results that are positive when I apply for the position. Because typically, if you were to work with a group of people, whether you're doing drug counseling, any type of social emotional counseling, they say a success rate is 20%. That's what nationally you do 20% improvement. You betting 1,000. Me, I was always wanted to double and triple that. And
Right.
for the most part, when I look at my record, when they used to do these comparisons in these pie charts, I was reaching that goal. Sometimes it will be higher. I was reaching that goal because one, I didn't care what gender you were. I didn't care. I got a white kid that graduated 3 years ago. He still called me every 3 or 4 months. He called me all the time. He done got married, had a baby. He'll just call me randomly and be wanting to talk. I'm serious. And it has nothing to
That's
do
what's
with
up.
race to me. You know what I'm saying? Because I work
Right.
with Hispanics. I work with some of these people who are undocumented. I work with, women that have been on drugs of all races. Age, to me, it doesn't matter. If I could have a dream job, everybody I work with would be between the ages of 9 and 18. That would be it. 9 and 18. And they would have to drag me away from doing that.
Right.
Size, I don't care about weight. That's, especially when people be young, I just say, man, you got baby fat. You can get rid of that. That's baby fat. That's all it is, baby fat. You know what I'm saying? Because, we, like you said, you was a slim guy because you was outside. You was doing stuff. You wasn't up under a TV, up under adults. You was
No,
doing.
I was slim being slim. I was
But
slim out the womb. I was slim.
But what I'm saying is you were slim,
Yeah.
but you didn't grow. You stayed slim until you built up. You didn't get, you know what I'm saying? You didn't have no gut. You ain't had no stomach and 12. And you ain't know a lot of kids that were just built overweight, wide hips. These brothers didn't have wide hips back in the day, Brother Vinny. So I'm just looking at from that perspective when I'm talking about working with minds who are wanting to be encouraged to be better. And religion was something that you could never come to a broken person with first. I never brought up religion when I was talking to someone who was in a broken space. That's the last thing I'm gonna break up because they've already turned their back on the Most High. They, you know what I'm saying? A lot of them turn their back when they're in that space, and when you don't know how to navigate through it, it's the last thing they want to hear. So I would just take these things to account. I didn't care what age you were, how tall, short, fat. About 10, 5 or 10, and it grew over the years. I had clients that were LGBTQ. And they would
Remember you
want to
said
talk
something.
to me more than anybody. And I used to ask, why you want to talk to Mr. Ferguson? Mr. Ferguson, but you listen, you understand. I said, no, I said, I'll be mean. I'll just be saying stuff to you. But no, it makes sense. And then, I feel better and da-da-da. I said, well, even in these conversations, you have to apply these things to your life so you can move better.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, man, I'm going to shut up. In 1 year, I probably had like 3 or 4 students that always wore black fingernail, black mascara, just in a black dark
Goth,
space.
that goth look.
Yes, and I love those students. It was one particular young lady, man, a senior. She just had no motivation to do nothing. Pretty, light skin, had the curly hair, man. She felt alone. And I sat her down behind my desk, and we got to talking. Within the 30 minutes, she started crying. And I like when they cry. I say, yeah, cry it out. Get it out your system. Because when you come back to school tomorrow, we on a whole different playing field. And she didn't come to my office that next day. I seen her. She walked past because I see everything. So the next day after that, she came and just sat down. I was like, oh, what you come back for? I'll be playing dumb, but I already be knowing. I just came to check on you. You came to check on me? Yeah, and talking to it. And she sat there, and then by the end of that week, going into the next week, she started talking about things she may want to do. She started revealed to me a little bit about where her personal life is, because I contact parents. Whenever I get a new student, I'm calling the parent immediately while they sitting there, because I'm asking the parent, listen, I need your support. She lived with her father. Father, I need your support, sir. Could you give me your support so we can help this baby out right here? That's all I need is your support. And they be like, yes, sir, whatever you need. Cool. That's all I need. And then I say, now you see, we on the same page now, so you can't play game. And man, over the course of that semester, grades be going up. When they get that report card, you got the little quarter grades that may not reflect the improvement. It may get 1 grade. Depends on how much time is left when I come across the students or whatever. Because it's early in the quarter semester, then they got time to get a decent grade. But if it's sort of like end of that quarter, I say, well, that's okay, because that's just a measuring stick. Between now and the end of the semester is where you make your money. I said, so we're going to make all these D's come up to C's, all of them. What's your favorite subject? Okay, so with your favorite subject, there has to be a B or above. And every time I'm checking on them, because I got schedules right there. I know what time you in this class. And I'll just go, and I could just pop in on a class. If a teacher was giving a lesson and I stuck my head in, sometimes I have to do it so quick, Mr. Bennett. I have to do it quick. I have to just, because if I stayed there and the teacher saw me, come on in. I'm like, and I talk to them, give them 5 minutes. And they would just break and let me give them 5 minutes. Of course, kids are kids, and I love the ones that had the personality. The class clowns. Those were my favorites. Those were my favorites. Because after giving them that message, and they come to my office, well, I had a classroom set up like an office, but it was a whole classroom, and let them work through things. And that's all I'm doing is just talking the same message, regardless of where they were personally, low self-esteem, they're getting the same message. And just seeing that growth, that was the greatest gift that I used to think, like, I am so rich, because I could see the minds changing. From where I got a student that just called me 2 weeks ago. Her mother used to have issues, and her mother, I bought the one lady bought it to me, and then I started communicating with her and her mother, and they were able to sort of resolve that issue. And I talked to her 2 weeks ago. She's been out of school for a few years. She has a child now, little boyfriend she chose, little white guy, ain't even got his GED. I was like, man, you got to get that. Mr. Bennett, this type of stuff is something that I take serious, especially with those minds that I know who haven't gotten into the depths of the true world. They still have some type of protection over them. So I love those people, man. I love that group of young minds, man. And they're going to drag me away from doing it.
I heard that. I heard that. Let's go to the next one here. Include everyone in meetings, activities, and discussions when possible. Again, to me, this is just about having an inclusive space where people feel valued and respected. So, again, bringing people in. What good is it to bring people in the meeting, again, if you're not going to listen to their opinions? So again, it's just creating that environment where you feel heard and that other people feel heard. Don't just segregate yourselves off all the time. It's okay to invite somebody to lunch that maybe doesn't necessarily ordinary. Now again, they can say no, or they say, hey, I'm working through lunch or whatever. A lot of times I eat at my desk. I don't go out too much. Well, look, folks going to get together and do something. Hey, we're going to grab some lunch. You want to come with us? So back when one of the jobs I had, we had a big cafeteria. And for the longest time, I would eat in my desk, and then so I would just go. And then, sometimes you may just grab somebody on the way. What you doing, man? Hey, we're going into the caf and just going to chill or whatnot. Why don't you come with us? Bring your lunch. So again, it's that kind of inclusive environment that you want to create. And certainly when people make offers to you, then again, be willing to accept it. Again, you don't have to go all the time, but the fact that someone thought of you enough to say, "Hey, why don't you come with us back?" I don't think I would have. I don't think I'd be married right now, at least not to my wife, if her office mate did invite me to go to lunch with them, because they went to lunch every day. There was a group of them. They would sit at a round table and they would talk about everything from politics to common culture to relationships, you name it. But she was like, hey, why don't you come and have lunch with us? And that was a big part of, again, how I met my wife. And then the rest is history kind of after that. But yeah, you never know what happens. Now, again, I'm not here to encourage workplace dating. I don't think I would do that today, certainly given, again, the climate that we're in. But you just never know what happens, again, when you invite people into certain spaces. I know in my case personally, certainly it proved the benefit. Any thoughts on this one, Coach?
Uh, well, like I said earlier, a lot of times when the positions I had, we had designated times where we were going to meet and collaborate, and sort of expected to everybody to at least contribute to the discussions and the little round table. So it was cool, and it was sometimes they would just go around asking different opinions and probabilities to whatever issues we had, how to resolve it. And yeah, I've always respected that. I didn't
Gotcha.
necessarily always have a lot to say because I would always just follow the expectation of what they said prior to. You know what I'm saying? But I would give my opinion about how to, resolve some things based off of my own experiences and trials and tribulations. Because a lot of
Gotcha.
people in the positions that I was in, they couldn't connect with the kids. They couldn't connect with them. They resigned. It's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And I would be able to take them on field trips. I never had behavior issues. I never had issues because I gave expectations often prior to, just not having, one conversation. But yeah, I think especially in a corporate setting, like my wife, she has a lot of meetings and things, and they value her opinion. She's always getting, a, I don't know, I ain't gonna call them rewards or awards, but those bonuses look nice. Those bonuses look nice, and she does her job well. And that's always commend on. I say you do your job so well. You can work one day a week and just be sitting at the computer lollygagging, but she does her job well. She takes it
That's right.
serious, and she get recognized it too. Because my wife don't look for jobs, Mr. Bennett. They call her and say, "Come work for us."
There you go.
That's yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we got about 5 more, I think, to go through. So I'm just going to go through these last ones quickly, just respecting the time. And again, for those who joined us tonight, thank you for certainly the commentary in the chat. Again, make sure you hit the like button and continue to support the channel and share some of this content. I mean, some of the things that we're talking about tonight, you think that, yeah, people know that already, but in my experience, not always. So, certainly feel free to share the content. Certainly going to the next one here. Speak calmly And clearly, without shouting or yelling, a loud voice can be very intimidating. Now, again, have we worked with people like that? Again, I know I have. A lot of them been women. Again, emotional discussions. Again, I've been a part of some of those, but it's certainly understanding who I am and the spaces that I'm in, and also just my frame. I have to be mindful of that, maybe more so than other people. So you can be a 5'2" white woman, a 235-pound black man. If I use the same energy, what I may say may be certainly taken very differently than what someone like that would possibly say. But again, it's about, again, managing your emotions in the moment. Why people get to shouting and yelling is because of some of the things that we talked about earlier. Are you cutting people off when they try to speak? Are you disrespectful or criticizing their points of view when they express it? Again, I've been in corporate meetings, boardroom meetings where the tensions get very high. And trying to modulate that, again, it happens in upper management, it happens between clients and in customers, it happens in a lot of different areas. But again, certainly in the positions that we occupy, again, I have to be, certainly as a black man, I'm very conscious of that. That doesn't mean that you're timid. That doesn't mean that you're not direct. That doesn't mean you're not truthful. That doesn't mean that you're not honest. But again, if you go in with that kind of intimidation, again, you're not creating a healthy work environment. So again, being able to manage your emotions and recognize that depending on who you are, you can't move like other people move. And again, I hate to say it's 2025, but these are things that if I had a son now, I would tell him that. Or like I said, what happened with my daughter, who was very emotional over what happened. Again, I have to try to modulate and again get her to think rationally into being overly emotional because of the situation. So again, your thoughts on that, Coach?
Yeah, man. Listen, everything you're saying, man, is 100%, man. Personally, I've never went into a job having to raise my voice. Loudest I probably talk is on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's not even that loud. I don't think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen you yell at anyone, even though they may have been coming at you and saying things about you or whatever. You keep your cool, man. I mean, I've never seen you just go off on anybody in these spaces, man. Again, that's a that's a discipline that I've seen in you. That it doesn't matter. People coming at you, insulting, what left, right, center, whatever, or dismissive of you, and you don't let that affect who you are. I see a lot of times you just smile at them, or do that little that kind of like what, like that kind of thing. But you don't. I never saw it. I never saw you lose or break character or get overly emotional about anything. I mean, that's something I really respect about you. That again, especially in these spaces when these conversations get very explosive, again, you keep you cool.
Yeah, I've been in a few conversations where I raised my voice, but it wasn't to attack anybody. It was just to try to flush out. You hear 14 versions of the lie on YouTube and one version of the truth, right? So I just, when I hear stuff, sometimes when people say they speak the same way, I've had to raise my voice just to say no. But I wasn't like going back and forth to cut them off and things. I would just let them finish. No. but
I've never seen you going like on a profanity laced rant.
Yeah, I try to not
that, F you, and F.
Yeah, I'll say
that.
It's funny. I try not to curse because I'm trying to make sure that my message goes beyond my feelings.
Right.
See, because I'm thinking past the panel most of the time. And people that come back and listen, when some subjects and topics that we may not seem are touchy or triggers, other people's may. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I just speak past that, and I don't think I have to yell, because even as a coach, I never curse players. I raise my voice, but I don't yell at them, and especially in the heat of the excitement,
Mm-hmm.
I don't go off because they miss an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, because they didn't get a loose ball in basketball. I don't. No, come here. Let me talk to you.
Yeah.
How you feeling? I used to play my game. How you feeling? Did
Right.
you eat today? Do you got to go take a dump? Because I can take you out and let you go take a dump. And they look at me and be like, what you talking about? I go, no, but are you sure? Because you playing a little sluggish right now.
Yeah.
And you usually are dominating. I don't have to worry about you. Which, okay, coach, I get together. And and I'm smart about it, because I like, go over and get some water and come right back. They go over and get some water. Because I have a rule, if I'm coaching you, don't let me see you over waving and talking to your parents on the sideline. You want to not get in the game? Let me catch you. I ain't saying you turn, you speak, you know what I'm saying? You go and get some water by the fence and you see them and they call your name, you wave at them. No. But if I look and y'all over engaged in the conversation, you might not get in the game for the next quarter or two. And then when you ask me, I'm going to say, go get your parents so I can tell them what the rule is, and you don't be having conversations with family during the game.
Yeah.
No, don't do that, because the focus is the game. After that, y'all can celebrate. They can meet you at the gate, walk you with your helmet, things like that. Other than that, tell them the expectation is to cheer. I'm not going to be yelling this. I'm not going to be, all right, Brother Benny, man, okay, the first time, you're going to be sitting out. Ain't going to be no, well, no, what was you doing? I caught you. I told you, don't do it. You broke the rules, so you sit out. Yeah. And I'm saying a quarter, but it might be a series or so, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm not going to keep trying to have this conversation with you next week, Brother Bennett. Yeah. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to have to keep if I have to keep enforcing a rule on one person, then that person is no longer important to what I'm trying to do. I'm a next man up type of guy. And if I have to yell to get my point across while I'm trying to teach, then I'm not doing a good job of teaching. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. And as far as me and you work together and we get into a heated argument over some goddamn paper at the printer, no, I ain't gonna never do that. I wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? I don't get caught up in that type of rhetoric with people if I'm trying to do something professionally. Exactly. It's going to be professionally to the end. I'm going to stay professional. Now, I can't control what the other person do, but when I see that, then we ain't going to lunch together no more. Yeah. We ain't watching the games no more. I'm going to be hey, what's up, brother Ben? How you doing? Lane. Yep. But I ain't trying to mix that type of energy, and I've always been like that. If you was a maniac in the streets, who wasn't gonna be your friend is me. I'll speak to you. I ain't gonna, you know what I'm saying, because I know you're a maniac and you know me. At least I'll get some protection from you. That's right. But as far as like, come on, let's go over here and bust out these windows. Nah, man, go ahead. Exactly. Go ahead. But people are a little different today. And
then just to that point, because again, I grew up, coaching my basketball coach. Love him to this day because he let me on the team, and he was he was not
old school.
Cool, no, old school. You guys playing like old people, slow and sloppy. He would get on everybody in practice. But the thing about it was, I think back then, the fact that everybody got it, even the star, you just accept it was just his thing. You know what I mean? So again, you didn't take it, you didn't internalize it so much because that was just his thing. He would throw the clipboard in the game. He would throw the clipboard. He would get off. I mean, just ranting. Got like talking about Bobby Knight. on some Red Bull. I mean, that's so again, he would so again, I realized that, that coaching style, and again, I don't see as many people doing it now. Unfortunately, there've been some cases where guys, I mean, even Bobby Knight, Indiana got tired of him after a while for doing some stuff. So again, that kind of thing isn't there. So again, as Gen Xers, again, we've been exposed to both. And so certainly we learn you don't have to do things that way, but we're exposed to it. But certainly it is, yes, no, it wasn't, it was Sipod. Frank's Coach Sipod. I love him to this day. He gave me my senior letters on that senior day or whatnot. I love him forever for putting me on the varsity basketball team. He is always going to have that special place. I appreciate him for that. But he would say anything and everything. Joe P, I never heard him get sideways with somebody, but Coach Sipod, some of the stuff he said was legendary back then. But we just dealt with it. But moving on to the next one, be generous with compliments and limit criticism. Now, again, even this one, you got to be careful with in terms of what you're complimenting. Be generous with compliments, especially those that are work related. But these days, you got to be very careful about, especially if it's a lady, you have to be very careful about talking about how her appearance, her hairstyle, her makeup, her, so just even, I don't even say, oh, you look nice today. I don't even go there anymore because you just don't know how people are going to take what they're saying. But again, if someone does something very productive, if they produce work that was praiseworthy, or that is certainly someone you've been working with and you appreciated what, the type of work, and you want to drop them a line saying, hey, I really appreciate the documentation that you met with, or how you carried yourself during that time, or the work that you put in, the extra hours, I really appreciate that, or whatever. It's okay to give that within the professional space, but try to limit some of the personal compliments. Oh, you lost weight. Again, don't try to draw attention to those type of things. And again, as far as criticism, again, my thing is I will give a critique if you ask for it. Or if I say, I may ask you, hey, how do you think I'm doing? Do you think I could do my job? How can I do my job? I've asked coworkers that. And I'm not afraid, and I've opened it up, and they've thanked me for, hey, thanks for, allowing me to say, because I want your input. So don't be afraid to seek honest critique if it's warranted, but at the same time, certainly people who do a good job, praise them for doing, and even especially because some managers, they may not even appreciate the job that they're doing, but again, every day. So I know what you're putting in. And sometimes the managers, they may, for whatever reason, it could be a style clash, personality clash, whatever, they may not recognize it, but I'm just letting you know that I recognize your work. And a lot of times that does a lot to edify and lift somebody up who may be thinking, man, I'm never going to do this job right. Or am I going to last here? And how you're able to lift people up because you recognize, again, especially if it's something specific, just saying great job doesn't necessarily get it. If you can be specific with your praise or with your compliment, that does so much for people to really lift their spirits up. So, Coach, your thoughts on that one?
I mean, again, man, it's spot on, man. I've always taken this approach, regardless of from work. If I'm going into a space where I'm gonna be around people that I'm meeting for the first time, I'm always gonna at least I'm gonna limit my criticism. I'm gonna always limit my criticism. I don't project a lot onto other people. If I'm gonna say a corny joke, I'll put it on myself. You hear me say it all the time. I'm a big ugly dude. I've never been afraid to humor myself and be the butt of the joke. Mm-hmm. I've never been afraid of that since I was a kid. But again, in having interns, always trying to encourage them and motivate them because they're in college and they're trying to get the best grade. And I've allowed them freedoms to be creative in how to implement the information to youth and to a lot of the clients per se, but I would always give a direct path to initiate the process. Do certain things and don't do certain things.
Mhm.
Do it professionally, do it at a high level professionally, and then you'll figure out the nuances of how to tweak it as you go because each client is different. The approach has to be a little different. And I've never been afraid to learn by watching others and understanding others' concepts because I may not be have to use it initially today, but in 6 months, I can say, "Oh, Brother Bennett gave me a good idea about something," because now I see how it can work. I've been
Yeah.
one of those type of person, and I never, like I said, it just I never. That's why I do some of the things I do. As far as I guess, YouTube is a different space than when you actually have. I guess what is it? The sort of like it's almost like you have the authority over the group in a
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
I've I've always limited my criticism, and I've always been generous. And even with the compliments, I've always complimented something that someone may have done or that they're capable of doing. I used to always tell them, "Listen, you are smart, you are creative." I used to ask, "What talents do you have naturally? What can you do naturally?"
Right.
And that when I've realized they have a gift already, you're good at that. You're gonna be good. Practice it. I give them little strategies. A lot of times, like I said, most listen, and just being able to be in that space because I never took my feelings and emotions to the job on the day. Did nobody when I was brother Ben, when I say I was in the school, I was like working for myself. That's how it was. The principals didn't bother me. Only one I had constant communication with is counselors, maybe a few therapists, probation. But I was allowed to do my thing. Like I said, I could go into these classrooms and take the worst student in the class in about 10 minutes. He's laughing, class is laughing. He's saying he's gonna be better. He's saying he's gonna be focused. And then when I pop in the classrooms every day after that, it's a nice calm. People are working.
Yeah.
There's nobody disrupting the class. So just being able to do that and with people that I work with who may not have been respecting the job and position, I would just like, hey, let's try to come to them with positives and possibilities of where they can grow instead of saying what you can't do. I never tell them what they can't do. You can do it. It just takes a little work. So yeah.
Okay.
So
We are again, we try to keep the show to 2 hours. We're at 152 at this point. So I say let's go through one more slide number 10, and then we can certainly continue this and finish this next week. Again,
sure.
hopefully this has been useful information, and then we can get into our topic for next week as well. But the last one I will bring up again, certain things you shouldn't have to say. You would hope that people are raised with this, just saying please, thank you, you're welcome as part of your daily routine. Again, I just think it just starts with, again, the respect that you should have been taught from the beginning, that people have to earn it. These are things a part of what you do. And again, it also is better when you genuinely have an effect because there's a thing called also being polite and cordial. Again, you can use the language, but if that is not undergirded, if it's not built on respect, then again, even these aren't formulaic. It should be part of your character, not just a practice. Because the devil can tell you thank you and please also. People have your worst interests at heart. They can say they can use these words also. But if you are operating from a basis of respect, a respect for every human being, from a spiritual perspective, if you see people created in the image of God, then these things shouldn't be too hard for you. But people are like, why should I say thank you for something that that they already should be doing? I've heard that literally people say that. I shouldn't have to thank you for certain things, but those little things go a long way still. You hear this even in even in marriages. It's like, look, well, she's supposed to do, or I'm saying thank you for things she should already be doing, or I should say thank you to him for things he's already doing. Yeah. That is if you truly respect them. But for a lot of people, it's just these simple things are getting lost in a culture that is getting more coarse, that is getting more profane, that is getting more rude, that is getting more tribal. And I think we need more of this sort of dialogue. And unfortunately, older people, like I said, Mariana made the comment earlier, in our political system and process. If we can't get this kind of decency, core decency from our politicians who are running the country with a trillions of dollar budget, the young people need to be doing these things. Disconnect. Sometimes I think the older has, in terms of how we should be conducting ourselves as grown people. And so any place you see me in any of these spaces, I'm always going to keep the respect high. So how you see me here is how you're going to see me on the one-on-one sports show or the barbershop or any platform that I'm going to be on. But I think we really need to do a reset because, again, it seems like people tend to just want to live in chaos or be in places where there's chaos. And my thing is, certainly with the time that I have left, I certainly want to be to bring peace and reason and understanding and respect to situations anywhere that I am. Like I said, you always leave an area better than when you left it. And so if I can't leave the situation better than when I left it, then I don't need to be in that place. But we got a couple more. So, Coach, it's up to you. We're at slide number 10. We have 2 more points to make. We can either stop the show here at 157 and just kind of quickly go through these and summarize, or you want to say these for next week. What's your take, sir?
Man, listen, I really can't say again, Brother Bennett, you're the one on the time, right?
Oh, I'm good now. I'm good. Friday, I'm good.
I wake up
I can go. I'm good. I'm good now. Early in the week, I'm good.
What you think it'll be about another 30 minutes or so at the most?
Less than that. Probably 10, 15 times.
Okay. So really quick on this.
We're going to keep pushing.
Man, on this right here, again, it just, I appreciate the time when I was growing up in as a young kid, because it was, to me, in my experience, it was everywhere. I've always, again, please, I don't know if I had to say it. Our parents didn't really enforce responses to them except yes and no. It wasn't yeah. My father hated yeah. Yeah. What? Now, what was a word that get you slapped from around the corner? A what? Yeah. A what? Yeah. And thank you. And even in that, the conversation was, I don't know, we didn't have no long drawn out conversations about words to say or not to say. It's just, it was just it seemed like it was just something innate in most people, because I remember going over a friend's house and Miss So-and-so, may I have some water? Well, go ahead, baby. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Or they would offer. Now you didn't have to, please, because like I said, people today, if you try to get them to say please, that's like stabbing them in the heart. Like, Indeed. No, I can't do it. So Indeed. And yeah, and you're welcome. I've always done it to Strangers, I'm always going to use these words. Please, excuse me. Excuse me, please. Kids, if you're a kid, you stand away, excuse me, little kid. What's up? Thank
Mhm.
you. I never
Yeah,
looked at it. My
you
pride is
employ
not to
that
be,
with younger
yeah,
people. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
I don't take those things. My pride is to be respectful, not to disrespect.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So, and I had to teach
exactly.
my sons that,
Exactly.
you go to a space new, just say hello, everyone. You ain't got to identify. You speak. You do certain things. I still take my hat off every time I go into a building. Every time. If I got a hat on, if I go into a building, I take my hat off every time. I don't care if it's Walmart, church, your house. I'm taking my hat off. I don't leave my hat on. So,
Indeed. Indeed. Okay, wrapping up. Okay, give and take instructions gracefully. So again, how you just say, again, how you, as even if you're in an authoritative position, you just give orders, bark orders to people. And when someone tells you to do something or whatever, again, do what's your attitude? Okay, on it. Or hey, I'm in wrapping this thing up. I'll get right on it right after it's done. Now again, some management, they'd be like, no, I need this done now. Forget everything that you're doing or whatever. But your manager said they want this. So sometimes I've had to go above them and say, look, and they'll still say, I still want mine first. So it's like once you start getting to that politics or that kind of relationship, then that gets dicey. And I've had to manage some of those. But yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be barking at people to do things. And when people tell you to do certain things or whatever, you know, try your best to accomplish, especially if it's within your. Now, my only exception to this again is it within your, and I got to be careful with this as well. Is it in your job description? What you don't want to do is you don't want to get into a situation where you're doing someone else's work
for sure.
on a consistent basis. Yeah, some say, hey, can you help me out with something or whatever? But if you're doing things for people that they need to be doing, then again, that's not healthy either. You need to be able to recognize that and check people when they try to get you to do their stuff. But don't necessarily run away from it either. I talked about this when I was transitioning into the job I have now. You have certain people who are like, their thing was like, that's not my job. But the thing is, sometimes when you're doing things that are outside of the bonds of your job, you acquire skills and a work ethic that can help you in the next job or opportunity that you may have.
Mm-hmm.
I always liken to I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek growing up as a kid, the original one, not the 20
Kirk and Spock.
different versions of it. Captain James T. Kirk and Spock and Bones, right? Dr. McCoy. He would always say, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer, when Jim asked him to do something, right? And I always feel people don't always turn something down. It may pay you dividends later. So when you go for that next job, so yeah, I have experience with this, that, and third. If you have the bandwidth to do it, now again, if it's compromising your primary job, then you gracefully say, I can't do that right now. And recognize who has seniority in the jobs and positions that you've been given. But don't just turn down think of it as an opportunity for you to get a new skill set. So again, that's why again you take and give gracefully. Don't turn down something that could benefit you later on. Coach, your thoughts on that one, and then we got one more after this.
Hey man, take advice if you can give advice, especially on the job. Really quick story. I'll make it real short. I had a supervisor when I first started working in the social services, right? Man, she was fine, man, Brother Benny, man. Listen, man, I used to sit in her office and she used to tell me stuff. I wouldn't even listen to nothing she was saying. I was just saying, and she became a really good friend, man. I got to know her sister worked there also. I got to know her mom, you know what I'm saying? And she became a really good friend, man. And it was pretty cool working under her because she taught me a lot about setting my expectations high. And she would give me instruction. I remember one time, first time I went to court, I wasn't prepared. I had my paperwork, but they was telling me do stuff that I was supposed to do, but I was new to the case. The person that was on the case before was supposed to do all this stuff, and I didn't know. So I come to the court. They like, did you do this, Mr. Such? No, man. And what they do when you go to court, they give you an evaluation. They sent that evaluation to her because they send it, straight electronic through emails and whatever. They send it to the company. Man, I got back before I can get back from court, man. She's like, come in my office. I'm like, what? Did you got in court? I said, well, yeah. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know. I was new. She's like, yeah, that happens, but here's what we're gonna do. And she showed me how to work it. From that point on, every time I went to court, I got a good court appearance because it's called a court appearance. Everything was always, all my paperwork would be done, all of my documentation, my evaluations would be signed off about the case and stuff through the state. Everything past that, okay, cool. And I never took it as like, oh, they telling me what to do. Why, you know what I'm saying? I never took those things personally. It was part of the job to be the best individual I could be in doing my job. And that's how I've always took. I don't know why, I just always took working that way. Going back to cleaning bathrooms, hell, I wanted to be the best bathroom cleaner.
Yeah.
So, so I'm always take this and I pass this along. Take construction, criticism. Absolutely. This is going to happen on the job. So.
Yeah. And like I said, you're basically, again, you're sowing seeds that can certainly come up later on that can certainly benefit you. So always be mindful of that. Last one. This has been a long list of things, but again, hopefully this has been instructive to everybody. Last one here. Again, treat others as you want to be treated.
Yes.
At the end of the day, go whatever you want to call it, golden rule. It works, guys. But again, it works better when you have a basic understanding and respect for people.
Sure.
And if you can do that, then, certainly, regardless of where you're working or whatnot, certainly, again, life isn't going to be fair. And it doesn't mean that you can do all these things perfectly. And still, you can't control who you work for or sometimes the environment. And certainly you have to make decisions in terms of whether or not you want to stay in that environment or not. So those are clearly things that you have to really weigh and pray on, and be strategic about as far as making your next moves. And so, so those are things that you have to be mindful of. But like I said, my daughter, she's had to move to a couple different jobs. That last one that somebody was a very toxic place. So she had to get up out of there. So always be thinking about your next moves. And again, no move or no job is necessarily has to be permanent. But these skills, these life skills, will certainly help you navigate these environments as best as you can. So, but try to do these first before saying, oh, well, this isn't right, so I'm out. I see that a lot with a lot of younger people. Any kind of thing that they may look at as disrespect or whatever, they don't know how to manage stressful situations. And a lot of times they just flight more so than learn the art and the skills in terms of how to deal with certain places. But again, if you can bookend, what you do between treating others to the golden rule and having a respect for everyone that you're working with, more than likely you will do well as could be certainly in that situation. Companies may fold. All those things can happen. New opportunities open. If you get into the habit of doing these on a regular basis, then again, it can certainly give you a lot of benefit. But Coach, last point is your thoughts on this as we close out. I just have the list here. So again, a lot of items on this list here that we covered tonight. But Coach, closing thoughts as we close out the show tonight. So however you want to wrap up.
No, just to this last point, man. Listen, everywhere I go, I'm gonna treat others like I want to be treated. Everywhere I go, I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm going to give respect, just because to me it's just part of who I'm trying to be, and I also expect respect, meaning that I'm not going to let you disrespect me just to prove a point. I don't move in that capacity. So yeah, man. Listen, great topics. I hope that people are, listening in later and just using these little nuggets and applying them to their lives because it can definitely be beneficial. I look forward to Thursdays. I'm sort of manning my day around the whole topics and everything, and just, what I'm saying, and just trying to be a better person in life and help and hope that I can help someone else move a little different and get in a better space, just something that can take them through the rest of their lives. So listen, man, part of man's health is mental health, and it's important that man start focusing on their mental health as much as their physical health, and going to spaces where you can have these conversations with other men about real life issues, something, whether it's your relationship, your work life, any personal issues, just finding a space where you can have those conversations, man, so you can help yourself and be better, man. So listen, man, salute to you,
Absolutely.
man, and everything that you're doing, man. And hey, man, we here, man. We Gen X. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere, man. So yeah, go to
For
work,
sure.
be respectful, don't move nobody's stuff if they didn't ask you to. Be polite, speak in general, and other than that, just do your job at a high level. It pays off, man. So salute.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good show tonight as always, and just want to give a brief update on upcoming shows on the Sparta HQ network. We're this close, guys, this close to getting monetized. So we encourage you certainly consider becoming a member. Like and subscribe to the channel. Get all the notifications as content comes out. Trying to give you quality content every week here. Just want to give a programming update that's coming up. So this Saturday on the Hangout Show, we're going to be talking about armor, who has the best armor. So again, out of the Iron Man or any kind of suited armor, it's a place we just kind of chop up, do nerd stuff, and just talk about our favorite comics and all kinds of things like that. So who has the best armor? Then on Sunday on the Gray Area Show. The topic is going to be: is it selfish to have kids if you're not financially stable? So that's going to be a topic again. So in the gray area, we're sort of taking a little pivot from shows that we've done before. Talking more, more life and personal issues, and having respectable conversations around that. So again, Sunday on the gray area, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, as always. Again, it's a selfish to have kids if you're not financially stable. Then on um, the following Tuesday night show, fit in style, the modern gym dress code. Okay, so again, certainly having a discussion about that gym attire, proper gym attire, and I know Coach and I, we grew up in the '80s when that stuff started to come out. So the leggings and the all those Jane Fonda outfits and whatnot, we were there at the beginning when all that stuff came out. So
Yes.
that could be an interesting show also. So again, those are shows going to be coming up through next week. But certainly, we appreciate all you guys for being here with us tonight. Make sure again you hit the like button as you leave, and more importantly, share the content. Stay tuned also for shorts that may come from these recordings and possible replays in the future. Certainly, so just be on the lookout for those. But with that, for myself, Mr. Bennett, he is the coach, Coach Ferg, and this has been Next Gen Training. Certainly, we hope you've appreciated what we shared. Share with other people, and have them pass this information on. Have them join us here every Thursday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time here on the Sparta HQ Network. So with that, take care. God bless and good night.